All right. Okay. Hey, everybody. I'm Tony. So I'm going to be 44 this month. My birthday's at the end of the month. Yeah. I am old. And yesterday I was playing basketball, mistake number one. And I played 4 games, and then it was that moment where there's only 9 guys left, and my body's saying, you're done, walk away, call it a victory. Another day played, you know. And there are 9 guys, and they needed a 10th, and so I said I would stay. And of course, they're like, we're going to play to 35, so like, this is not good. So I played one more game, and I should listen to my body more often because I woke up this morning, and I think I sprained my big toe. It seems like a small thing, but it's amazing how much of your weight is held up by your big toe. And so if you see me sort of like leaning on the podium a little bit up here, that's what's going on because I'm in a little bit of pain. And yet here we are. Woo! In our one-day week or one-day school week or something. All right, okay. Okay. All right. So not that long ago, I was in my rattle-trap Volvo driving into downtown Portland. My friend Wilson had called me, and he said, hey man, I'm downtown. Why don't you come down and hang out? We'll get a drink, we'll talk. Like, fantastic. So I hop in my car, go downtown. It was a beautiful Portland summer evening. Perfect. Warm air. And I get downtown and the streets are packed. Sidewalks are packed. And I found sweet parking, like a block and a half away from where I was meeting Wilson, right down just off 10th Street. So I pull in, I park, and I get out of my car, and like, you know, just people everywhere, and everyone is addicted to their agendas and their cell phones. And so I decide to return the favor. So I pull out my phone, I'm walking down the road, and I'm doing stuff, and then my phone rings. Like, you know, hello? And it's James. And James is my roommate in college, like 25 years ago. He's calling me up, what's up, James? So like we're chatting on the phone, I'm weaving through people and just kind of blowing people off and walking through. Get to the crosswalk, wait for the walking man. Walking man comes up across the street. I get to Jake's, and I reach out to grab the large brass and glass door to pull it open. And just as I start to pull it open, bam! There's this guy, like, up in my grill, like here. Taller than me, scraggly hair, dirty flannel shirt, and big old boots. He's like, hey! Hey. I'm like, James, I'm going to be a minute. Yeah. He's like, dude, you got $1. James, you have to hold on a second. What? Do you have $1? I'm like, why do you want $1? He's like, 'cause I'm hungry. And there's a pizza place up on 12th. They got good pizza. Do you have $1? Hold on, James. You're telling me there's a pizza place on 12th. You can get a slice of pizza for $1? Because I want to know about this place because I love pizza. And he looks at me like I'm speaking Persian. No. Slice of pizza is $3.50. Hold on, James. So, do you want $1 or do you want $3.50? I guess I want $3.50. Well, why didn't you say so? Hold on. Why didn't you say so? Give me a second. So with one hand, only got one hand, I'm digging through my pocket in my front. I managed to cobble together 3 $1 bills and 2 quarters. I put it in his fist, and he crumples it up inside of his fist. He looks at me, and his face breaks into daylight, and he turns without a word and stomps up the road. I'm like, James, you hear all that? He's like, yeah, dude, whoa. All right. So I go to grab the door to go in and meet Wilson. When I hear the footsteps again, this time coming towards me with intention. So I turn towards the sound of the footsteps just in time to see the gangly man coming towards me with one fist fully cocked. And when he gets to me, he swings, catches me full on in the shoulder, and the cell phone goes flying out of my hand and lands 20 feet away in a little explosion of plastic parts and electro-fancy gizmo. And I'm looking, that's my phone. And James is confused. So I'm staring at the parts when I hear it from behind me. The sound. Like a humpback whale being tortured. The moan! And I turn to see his knuckles dug into the soft parts of his cheeks, and he's screaming and staring at the broken phone on the ground. And everyone for more than a block around are staring at us, trying to figure out what's going on. So I reach up and I grab the guy. I'm like, dude, that's a phone. You're a person. That's a phone. You're a person. That's a phone. You're a person. Now, everything inside of me wants to stop the story right there. Right? Because if I stop the story right there, you might think I'm a good guy. Right? Because I want to be the hero of my stories. You might think I'm a nice person who maybe says nice things to folks who live outside sometimes. You might think that about me. But that would be a mistake, because that would not be the best version or even the truest version of the story. That's a phone. You're a person. And then he looked down at me, and he smiled, and he said, "You're a person too." And he turned and he walked away. It's tempting to look at that story and say that I somehow rescued him. But if you heard the beginning of the story, the reality was I was the one who was addicted. I was the one who was treating people like objects, not treating people like people. I was the one stuck on my agenda and not open to the possibilities around me. He rescued me. You guys see that? He rescued me. Our theme is through the lens of Jesus. Luke chapter 19. If you'd like to read along. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through, and there was a man called by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector, and he was rich. Zacchaeus was trying to see who Jesus was and was unable because of the crowd, for he was small in stature. Quick side note. When it says small, I imagine it means crazy small, like insanely small. How do I know this? Question. How many biblical characters out of the thousands of people named in the Bible do you know how tall they are? It's not a detail these particular writers cared about. You literally had to be 9 feet tall to be called tall in the Old Testament. So if 9 feet tall is what it takes to be called tall, what does it take to be called small? Just a thought. For he was small in stature. So he ran on ahead and climbed up into a sycamore tree in order to see him, for Jesus was about to pass through that way. When Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for today I must stay at your house." And Zacchaeus hurried and came down and received Jesus gladly. When the crowd saw it, they all began to grumble, saying, "He has gone to be the guest of a man who is a sinner." Here, scumbag, poop wagon. When they say sinner, it is not in any way nice. It is a public declaration of rejection. Zacchaeus stopped and said to the Lord, "Behold, Lord, half of my possessions I will give to the poor, and if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I will give back 4 times as much." Side note, it's amazing what infatuation does to our language, right? I love you so much, I will give you the moon. I love you so much, I would run around the world 12 times for you, right? We say things that are crazy talk. If you actually do the math on Zacchaeus' statement, it sounds like he's going to give back about 4 times what he owes, or what he owns. And yet he says it because he's just in love. He's in love in the moment. He's experienced the affection of Jesus, and it affects him. If I've defrauded anyone of anything, I will give back 4 times as much. And Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because he too is a son, a true son of Abraham. For the Son of Man has come to seek and to save that which was lost." So through the lens of Jesus, I want to make a few observations about Jesus. First, he sees people that most of us ignore. He sees people that most of us ignore. We have a saying in our house. We love people and use things. We do not love things and use people. Jesus lived by that. He would see people that others do not see. To him, people were not just meat robots. This morning, I did a little search in my New Testament, in the Gospels. I looked at the phrase, Jesus saw. Jesus saw. Here's what I found. You ready? Jesus saw 2 brothers. Jesus saw the crowds. Jesus saw a mother-in-law. Jesus saw a tax collector. Jesus saw the mourners. Jesus saw a large crowd. Jesus saw the children. Jesus saw a sick woman. Jesus saw the students. Jesus saw a paralyzed man. Jesus saw the weeping woman. Jesus saw his mother. Jesus sees people. I walk through life, the play of my life, and some people I treat like people, and some people I treat like props. Here's another saying. People are not props. People are characters. Props, if this was a stage where we were doing something with a prop, this stand would be a prop. The speaker would be a prop. Susan is not a prop. Susan is a person. But when I walk down the street, as I pass people on the sidewalk, what goes through my mind? The conveyor belt of how I interpret the people going past me. Are those people I'm passing, are they no more significant to me than a park bench or a fire hydrant or a lamp post? Mere props in a play that I believe is all about me, or are they people? Students who have had spiritual formation with me, we talk about what do we do with people who are begging for money on the off-ramp or along the streets of downtown Portland. What do we do about that? And together we kind of came up with a rule, of a principle. Whether or not you give money to that person is your business. You have to determine your own ethics around giving away money. Giving away money is sort of an option. What is not an option is tunnel vision and pretending like that person is not there. In the way of Jesus, that is not an option. We look at people and we acknowledge their humanity. You are a human. If we can, we make eye contact. We say hello. We say, have a good day. Are you okay today? Are you staying warm? We acknowledge that they are a human being. People are not props. People are characters in our play. We love people and use things. We do not love things and use people. Second thing I observe about Jesus is the people Jesus saw were not defined by their past. It says, and the crowd began to grumble, saying, he has gone to be the guest of a man who is a sinner. Now that's a pretty mean thing to say in the public streets and to shout out in front of all these people. But they had every right to say it. Zacchaeus was a jerk. He's probably a thief. He was a little errand boy for the Roman Empire. They weren't saying stuff that wasn't actually true. Just the difference between them and Jesus is Jesus didn't let that own who Zacchaeus was. So inside me, I've got a list. I keep a list of people that I've written off. for one reason or another because of something about their past. You know what goes on my list? Goes on my list is people who think they're smarter than they are and they like to talk a lot. They go on my list, and I dismiss them. Religious people who like to preach at others, tell them what to do, and they always have the religious answer. They go on my list, and I like to dismiss them for their past. Anyone who's hurt one of my friends goes on my list because I dismiss them. But if we live our lives through the lens of Jesus, there is no list. People always have the chance to be better, to believe better about them. And that is what Jesus invites Zacchaeus into, and Zacchaeus responds in spades. And the last thing I see is Jesus publicly supports the marginalized. In the last statement it says, Jesus says, today salvation has come to this house because he too is a son of Abraham. It's interesting, he doesn't speak in the second person. He doesn't say, you are a son of Abraham. He says, he too is a son of Abraham. He is talking to the crowds. He is a son of Abraham. Son of Abraham is the strongest compliment you can give to a person at this particular stage in human history in Israel. He is a son. He is a true son of Abraham. And Jesus declares it to the crowds. You may hate him, but I don't. I am with him. I stand with the one who has been marginalized by you, rejected by you, dismissed by you, forgotten by society. So much so that he feels like he has to hide in a tree. That's dehumanizing. Feels like he has to hide in a tree. So, how do we break these patterns? How do we start to live more like Jesus lives? Where we see people as people, not as objects. How do we move through life where it doesn't require a homeless man to step up in our grill and ask us for $1 just so that we wake up? What does it take? Well, it's not easy because, quite frankly, we're hardwired to ignore people. Every event you've had in your life has been teaching you, society has been teaching you, the world's been teaching you, probably your parents even taught you how to ignore certain people, to walk through life that way. We need a jolt to snap us out of walking around like a zombie. Got ready? So sometimes jolts need to take sort of a dramatic form. And I wanted to show you a short clip about some people who kind of got a jolt in their life to help snap them out of their addictive patterns.
Bus fare to get to the game. They can't afford the $6 to get inside the building. And Craig Woods, the basketball coach at Roosevelt, tells me this is what happens all the time out here. There's, nobody shows up to support these kids. That, I realized, was the story. I ended up going home and talking about the kids who were left behind, kids who were abandoned, the kids who don't have parents with them every step of the way, for good or bad. And I ended that column by saying, I can tell you one parent who's going to be there for their final home game of the season against Madison. Does anyone care to join me? The response to that column was immediate and pretty amazing.
We weren't expecting a lot of people like usual, and so we come up and it was a slap in the face. Whoa, people filled our stands completely.
When I got to Roosevelt, there were 1,600 people in the gym. First night I went out there were 30. Now suddenly there's 1,600.
It was so big, so many people that's never showed up to a girls' game like that. It was so many people that they said that they almost had to stop letting people come in.
That was the greatest moment in my basketball playing history. Oh my Lord, it was crazy.
I was feeling the energy. I was really excited. I'd actually admit to showing off, kind of.
They lost. But for once, they were the spotlight. For once, they were the show. For once, they had 1,600 people cheering everything they did.
Myself, I don't think I've ever played any harder than that day. Just the energy and the positivity from like all those people that were there, just cheering for us was like amazing.
Wow, you know, this many people. My heart went out just like my heart went out to these kids. I think it convinced a lot of them to come back and believe that things were possible at Roosevelt they might not have thought before.
So that's a story from Roosevelt High School right here in North Portland, where 1,600 people, many of them driving in from the burbs, went to watch a game, a team that is totally ignored and forgotten by society. So, and I think the reason I love that story is really for what it does for the crowds and for the players playing, absolutely. What it does for the crowd, for them to give up an evening of their life for this. So we're going to do this. We got a lot of schools around here that have got teams of kids who are mostly ignored. And we're going to find a sporting event, and I want to invite you to come with us and show up in force, and for once have a group of kids believe that they're the most important athlete on the planet. That people would go out of their way just because they're playing a game to cheer for them. We're going to find a date. You're going to hear about it, and you're going to have a chance to go. We're going to make placards. If you guys are crazy enough to do face paint, we're going to split in two teams. Half of us are going to root for one team, half is going to root for the other team. We're going to scream our butts off, and afterwards we're going to go get autographs. And we're going to hopefully have an ice cream party with the kids who are playing. We're just going to do something for kids. Just 'cause. And they're not going to know it's coming. We're just going to show up to a game. If that's something you're interested in being a part of, and I want to encourage you to do it, we already took some sign-ups a couple weeks ago for Adventures in Humanity. If you'd like to also be on that list to get that information, you can sign up at the back. There'll be a couple people as you go out. Please come. Let's see some kids that otherwise are never seen. Let's live through the lens of Jesus. So I got a friend. No, that's probably a strong term. My phone rang the other day, and it was my friend, who is my friend, Rick. And Rick says, hey, Tony, I'm downtown. I'm having breakfast. Could you come down and join me? Well, sure. So I jump in my Volvo. I drive downtown. I get to the place he says to meet him. I go in, and he's sitting at the table with this other dude. So I'm like, Rick, two-timing me. Wow. So I walk over. Rick says, Tony, so great. Hey, look who else just came by. This is my friend Dave. Hello, Dave. Rick's like, Dave's my friend Tony. He writes books, blah, 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 blah. And Tony, Rick's, he's sort of a cheerleader. You know those people. Tony, this is my friend Dave. Dave's a really great guy. He used to be a pastor. Now he's got this creative company. He's really, really great. Oh, his wife tragically had a stroke, but she's doing better and blah, 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 blah. Okay. Sit down. Get a cup of coffee. And over the next hour and a half, I listened as Dave contributed 85% of the words in our conversation, if you know the type. Dave would ask a question, like he would ask me a question, and I couldn't get one sentence out before he would jump in and then share his idea and then go on a little diatribe about why his thought is so great. Been there? So after an hour and a half, I was happy to go home. Later that day, I got a pop-up Facebook message from Dave. Hey, Tony, I wrote a manuscript. I want it published. Would you please get it published? Here it is, Dave. I mean, when you're a writer, these things kind of happen sometimes, but it doesn't often happen with somebody you really don't know. And so I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to let this guy down nicely. So I just ignore it. A couple days later, another message pops up. Tony, this is Dave. I should never have sent that last message. What was I thinking? I'm so rude. Oh my gosh. Would you please can we just get together and talk sometime? I'd love to talk with you. Dave. Sure. Send. Great, how about Thursday at 3? It'd be really great. I'll meet you at this place in North Portland. Sure. Send. So I show up, walk in, Dave's waiting, sit down. Sort of prepared myself emotionally for it, sit down. And sure enough, over the next hour and a half, 90% of the words contributed to the conversation are all coming from Dave. So, those of you who know me know that I have a habit of saying things that other people aren't willing to say. And so, I'm preparing this little speech in the back of my brain the whole time. I'm going to say something like this, if I can get a word in edgewise. Dave, are you aware of the fact that in our two conversations, you've contributed 85 to 90% of the words in the conversation? Are you also aware of the fact that you ask questions and don't wait for the answer, but instead give your thoughts on the topic? And can you see how that might feel a little rude to the listener? Are you aware of that, Dave? So I've got this little speech. It's all loaded in the back of my brain, and I'm just waiting for the moment, and the moment is coming. I can see it. It's like 3 minutes away, and I'm going to have my little moment with Dave, when all of a sudden, Dave says, "Would you shut up?" And I was taken aback. And I'm staring at him, furrowed brow. Dave says, "Would you just shut up?" Keep in mind, I haven't said anything for minutes. And then Dave says, this entire conversation, I keep standing outside myself, next to the table, and looking back at myself and screaming at myself, "Would you just shut up?" But I can't stop talking. Tony, I'm so sorry. My wife has had a stroke. She can't even talk to me. I live every day haunted by my own thoughts and words. They run through my head all day long. I have no one to talk to. I sit across the table from someone I think is probably smart, and all I can do is blabber, and I can't stop myself. Would you please forgive me? And I said, "Dave, I'll make you a deal right now. You've got my phone number. Anytime you get an hour break, you call me wherever you are. I will come to you. I will sit across the table, and you can share with me all your ideas all day long from this day forward. That's our deal." See, my tendency is to write people off. My tendency is to want to dismiss people. So we're going to take a few minutes, and there's going to be some music played, and you're just going to get to think for a minute, reflect on your life. If you want to pull out this card, write on the back, maybe write some notes to yourself, it's up to you. But here's what I want you to think about. I want you to think about a few things. I want you to think about your list of people that you've written off because of their past, and don't give them the benefit of the doubt for the future. I want you to think about groups of people. Maybe it's people asking for money on the streets. Groups of people that you tend to dismiss or treat like objects. People are not props. People are not props. And then I want you to think through, just life-wise, are there people like Dave in your life? That maybe you need to hear the story behind what's going on. So just take some notes. Kind of go through the files of your head. Family members, former friends, people that have hurt you, groups in society. And may we all, by God's grace and by the power of the Holy Spirit, live our lives the way that Jesus lived his, noticing the marginalized and defending them in public.
think it's crazy how just those hard conversations and reflections within ourselves can mean so much, and so much can come from those. So I just want to, if we can give it up one more time for Tony, like, I think that was awesome. That really meant a lot to me.